This came from the report that Scott has talked about. Having a dedicated content optimization plan is the next step in delivering growth for your e-commerce site. It's great, that's very true, obviously. And we kind of talked about this. And my realm, and a lot of the guys who are here in Cardiff live in this monitor performance / reporting piece. So what we've been trying to do is become a bit more clever, I suppose, about how we do some of those bits. So how do we measure content performance? Scott's talked about some of the metrics that those guys tend to use, but the worry we've got is a lot of people think, okay, right, so SEO, that's going to get us higher Google positions, that's great. That's going to mean more visits to site, also great. It's going to mean more cash. It's not necessarily the case. So what if, actually, some of our best SEO content was reducing the likelihood of those visitors converting? Well, then all of a sudden we're focusing a lot on things that aren't necessarily good. That baby probably wouldn't say that, but we might say something like that. So that's what we wanted to understand, was actually what is the impact on the SEO work we're doing when it comes to understanding what happens after they get to site. We took a look at some specific examples. So in this case, currency converter content supporting the sale of travel currencies. And actually we witnessed this. So that page, if you went there, and it was great, ranked really well for SEO, but if you went there, you were a third less, so 2/3 less likely to convert than if you never saw that page in your entire visit. So a bit of a problem there. I want to point out that Barry's asked me to say that problems can be fixed. These aren't things that, we can't overcome. But in this case, the data is showing us that actually you're better off not having that page involved in a customer journey. Some of you may have seen me do this last time. I know one or two faces in the room from last time. We use a lot of data science in our modelling, and that's primarily based on predicting and propensity modelling. So propensity modelling being the chances of someone doing something that we want them to do. That's the formula for propensity modelling, and the important things there, because the maths is maths, the important things there are the betas and the W's. So beta is the weighting for each factor, and W is its value. So basically the point there is what we need to understand the factors that are important to us. And the other thing to say there is those factors, if they're positive factors, they'll actually mean that they're increasing the likelihood of someone buying. If they're negative factors, they're actually taking away from that likelihood. Some of those factors may include visit page view, checkout started, adds to basket. So these are the things we're looking at to understand customer success. One of the things we're also started looking at in real depth now is that auto page clustering, which you can kind of make out in bold there, the bold thing. I think I'm showing you the text. So yeah, auto page clustering is now something that's really important to us. That sort of scale may apply, so someone's less likely to buy if they see factors that are down there, so -1, 2, 3, 4. This sort of scale might apply if someone sees factors that are 1, 2, 3, 4. So these sorts of things are the good things, these sorts of things are taking away from the chances of buying. So we look at Exhibit 1, clients' blog content, 3,362 visits. Excellent. 2 sales. Okay, that's not so good. That's not as good as we'd hoped. We do a lot of attribution here. We like to understand the real value of channels. So that became 1.29 attributed sales. -2 weighting. So this blog content, great. Blog content's always really good for getting lots of content in for Google to index it for us to be able to drive much more content. But there's something wrong here. This isn't converting as we wanted it to. Is that the one I was supposed to say about?
Yeah, this is the campaign thing because all of the links there drove that 100%.
So we fixed it. But the point is exactly that. We started there, we looked at this data, and we understood that something wasn't working for us at that point in time. So as I said, intended to generate improvements for SEO performance, did generate visits to sites, but actually poor sales performance and even worse when we attribute. And that was at that point reducing the likelihood of sale for somebody. Exhibit 2, loans checklist content. I don't think we were involved with this. Good, okay, we'll talk about this one. 2,278, actually this is a good one, so I should have. 240 sales, brilliant. 250 attributed sales, brilliant. Plus 3.84 weighting. So in this case, this is working. And I suppose this is kind of the point with us, is now what we're able to do is instead of saying, well, okay, we've generated visits to sites, actually we need to take that story on a bit more, and looking at this level of information actually tells us which bits are working, which content's working, and which content's likely to work in the future as well. So in that case, content supports SEO strategy, Brill, generated less visits than the last example I showed, but huge increases to the likelihood of someone buying after that content was produced and put on the site. So kind of what I'm saying there is, yeah, create content that provides SEO benefits, but also provides website performance benefits. It's quite an easy concept really, they kind of go hand in hand. But a lot of that is about being able to monitor, to track and to understand those bits and pieces. The good news is, however, and there's a little bit of an attribution piece to this now, your SEO efforts are probably underreported anyway to start with. So maybe if you are reporting performance against SEO, you're probably underreporting right now. This is the sort of graph that we like to look at. Everything on the left is what a last click model, so what your standard Google Analytics model will tell you is right in terms of the sales by channel. Everything on the right is our attribution model, which uses data science behind it to work out where value should go. And you can see the SEO top left, small, the SEO bottom right, when it's attributed, actually almost twice as big. So what we're saying is, yeah, generally, this tends to be the case. SEO tends to be underreported, which is good. So actually your efforts are probably working better than you thought. A couple of clients, I've taken the client names out, but this, given what we've just talked about there, are some of the average increases we've seen. This is over a 6-month period. Increases we've seen by client for their SEO channel. The ones in the middle were 0, but then, to be honest, they weren't particularly transactional sites, so I'm not surprised by that. But we saw a range of somewhere sort of low 3% increase, right the way up to 22.86% increase in sales performance. By not doing anything else, just by understanding the data a bit better, and being able to report a little bit better using attribution modeling. So yeah, so the principles of attribution can be applied to landing pages. And this is kind of the things that we've been doing as well then. So okay, you understand that you're driving traffic to landing pages. You understand that, actually, you know what, this joke's not going to work now because Man City won the league, but you understand that what the performance is in sales that you think, but actually we can, at that landing page level now, talk about what things were positive and what things weren't so positive. So in this case, the store page for Man City's website, it's where lots of people went, but actually they were massively underreporting how many sales that generated. We did an attribution model for them. It went up from 809 to 925 in terms of the sales. The thing we're very cautious about is we're not creating sales. One of the things that we saw specifically on here was there's a page /stores/Man City/champions. I saw this about 2 weeks before the end of the season, and actually the attribution there was massively negative. 50% of the sales from that page weren't actually generated and weren't actually given to that page from a content perspective. So yeah, so some of the differences that you see there, but you know, Man City jokes aside, the point there is understanding this level of information actually shows you where the opportunities are, shows you where the problems are, and allows you to be able to look at better strategies as part of that SEO journey. We have started analysing the impact of all contents to find the balance now between SEO performance and between website performance. We use a lot of things like predicted content and journey analysis to do that sort of stuff. We employ data scientists, ones lurking at the back, they're not looking at me, to help us to be able to do this level of work. So what we end up then with is the ability to look at things by channel, but to be able to understand how well campaigns are actually working. This is the one, isn't it? So one of the things we did look at as a part of that, early engagement with a client, was having generated all of this excellent content, we had a conversion rate both for visitor and visits of 0%. So no one who ever saw that content at that time had actually gone on to buy anything. The benefit of time, obviously stuff happens over a longer period, that's why we like attribution modelling. But what this did was trigger in us a need to actually work out why that is, work out what we could do to help the client change the things that weren't working, and then drive that from 0 sales to 1200% ROI. So yeah, so that's basically the process that we looked at there. Okay, hang on, no sales here. It's actually reducing the likelihood of customers buying. Why is that? And as I said, this isn't the end of the world, but the sooner you start asking these questions, the sooner you can start to fix the things that are broken. We do look at journey analysis as well, so that helps us to work out where some of the issues are that maybe we've seen. So in this case, magazine content page, we started to analyse it, 80% of people bounced. Okay, that's not good. 18% of people refreshed, so still not particularly good. Only a few, just over 1%, went on to do something else after this. So as we talked about, we reviewed that, we looked at why that was the case. In this case, we identified there's a standard mega menu for the standard site. Bear in mind, this was an engagement content strategy. Engagement's lovely, sat there right at the top there, second link here, as you can see on the mega menu. We were using for the magazine pages, they have a different mega menu. So in this case, engagement, not a link even there. So we started driving all this great content in there, and actually it was something simple like we didn't have the right link in place to get those people to do the things that we think they were there for. And then we had a massive increase in sales. The other thing to talk about here, referrals from different channels do not always behave in the same way. So actually taking a look at all of our data in one go isn't necessarily the right strategy either. We need to ensure that our content matches what our customers are expecting. So here we have a beautiful graph, very colourful. I'm sure you can all read exactly what I'm going to say here. But the point there is, this is just that same breakdown of data, but in this case split by channels sent per person to site. So you can see within there we've got some huge differences. In this case, so here, natural search performing way better than all the rest of the channels. Great. So actually we've targeted well for that, but maybe we need to look at some of the other channels. In here it doesn't perform nearly as well as some of the other channels. So again, the point there is we've talked about data, but actually you can almost never finish, the story never finishes with how much analysis you can do with this stuff. We also tend to then apply this stuff to identify propensity modeling for different landing pages. So right away, what you can see here is a report that says, great, for these people, for this content that was driven, what was the landing page and what's the current propensity score that we've got for this person? So if we're taking away from that propensity, we're saying we're making it worse or less likely that someone's going to buy, we need to really rethink that quickly. If we think we're making it much easier for people to buy, and the data will show that, actually let's start to target more people and start to drive more traffic to those pages. That same modelling approach applies to then the journeys as well, so we can start to pick out individual segments, individual journeys within the site that are performing well or not performing well. And I've talked about data science quite a bit in here. I mean, putting the model together at the start is the difficult part. There's no point sort of trying to avoid that fact. But actually this is the same model then that's applied to all the data that you've seen within. So once that first model's achieved, actually the reporting capabilities then are pretty much endless. So what's next? So the other thing that we're now looking at is trying to marry that story a bit further back. So looking at marrying SEO performance with on-site performance, so we can actually predict the performance of content before it goes live. And we can predict the performance of content based on what templates being used, based on what we're targeting from a channel perspective. A lot of the work that Scott's talked about already with regards to the visibility score, we're trying to use that to marry that to how we predict on-site performance will happen. So straight away we're able to then say, we think this campaign will have this return. It'll actually pick out the best campaign straight away and actually work then on the more difficult ones over a longer period of time. Just because to prove I'm not lying, that's kind of how that'll look. There's a lot of systems built into this. A lot of this stuff is Scott scoring, a lot of this stuff is then doing the modelling post that. But the things that we'll look for then as the outputs are things like ranking data, keyword search volumes, website metrics that we're predicting, but also then the likely propensity scores and the likely conversion rates that you'll get then for the campaigns that we're running. So to summarise my talk, be mindful of performance with a content strategy. Just don't assume that driving more people to site is perfect. Model the impact of content on sales conversion rates and react. I didn't have that was in there already. Use attributed numbers to measure success because that is important, otherwise you won't be saying there's enough success, and predict the future content and the future effectiveness of marketing and site performance. Thank you very much.